Adam, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you everyone for jumping on. And I'm sorry for changing the time today. I have a funeral of someone who is very important to me to go to, so hence the time change. But Adam, thank you for doing this, because there's a lot we should touch on. I've obviously, and I'm completely out of the loop because I've been in court every day at the Mangione hearings. On Wednesdays, the judge has a calendar day. So that's my sort of the free day. And you know how this is, right? When and I didn't know, I don't think any of us knew that these suppression hearings, the pre-trial hearings, were going to go on so long, particularly because Judge Caro, the judge in this case, said he didn't want a mini trial, but it's turning into a mini trial. And, it's completely fascinating. But it is grueling, as you know. So shall I tell you a little bit about what's going on in that? And then we touch on all the amazing cases that you're covering.
Absolutely. I've been because I haven't been in the court for the Mangione hearings. So I'd love to hear your update. And before we begin, my sincere condolences. And thank you for making the time.
Oh, thank you, Adam. Well, I mean, the reason these are going on for so long is that, this is a battle in which the Luigi Mangione's defense is arguing that various statements he made to police before he was given his Miranda rights in the McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where he was arrested, should not be admissible at trial. And neither, very critically, they're arguing, should the items in his backpack, because the Altoona cops searched the backpack in which there was a gun and a silencer and a red book, which prosecutors claim was contained Mangione's quote unquote manifesto. Defense doesn't want to describe it that way. But the police in Altoona in the McDonald's searched the backpack without a warrant. And the backpack, by the time they searched it, was about 4 feet away from Luigi Mangione. There were several policemen standing between him and it. The cops did allow, and we've seen endless videos of this, people in the McDonald's to go through the scene of the arrest repeatedly to go to the restroom. So the cops' argument is that, well, there could have been a bomb in there, to which the defense is saying, well, if you thought there was a bomb, why did you not find the gun silencer, which they didn't on the initial search. They didn't even find the gun, actually, because the silencer feels like a pipe bomb. But why did you not clear the McDonald's if you really thought a bomb was going to go off? And, the Pennsylvania cops are very clear that they're allowed to do something called search incident to arrest. And the defense is very clear that they're not, that they need a search warrant to go through somebody's backpack. So anyway, I mean, and the reason it's going on for so long is that we're watching the same scene in the same McDonald's from all the different points of view of all the different cops. By the time Luigi Mangione was arrested, there were 14 law enforcement officers on the scene. So we're now watching every single body cam. And we're also watching the different body cams of when they took him to the police station, and that, they then went through his bag again before there was a warrant for his arrest. So this is what this is all. This is what this is all about. I mean, I wrote in a Substack on the weekend, Adam, that one thing that really is striking to me is he was very, very, very calm, and polite to the officers during his arrest. He does look in the courtroom like a very, very unlikely criminal defendant. I mean, he looks very young. He's very, very well dressed. And, I do think that we are going to be in for a humdinger of a trial. It's such an unusual case. And I have to believe that people are going to lie to get onto this jury because people feel so strongly about the healthcare industry.
Right.
So it is going to be very interesting. But that is where we are now. And I think the pre-trial hearings will go on for probably at least another 2 weeks.
That's incredible. Do you have any sense right now? Obviously, the judge issued a ruling that surprised some people where he struck down the terrorism-related charges,
Yeah.
saying that that didn't comply with New York law. This could be pretty critical evidence. It's his notebook. It's the weapon and silencer that prosecutors
Yeah.
allege to be the murder weapon. So that's this mini
No,
trial.
it's huge. I
Right.
mean, it's huge. And I think, no question, if the judge rules that these are not admissible at trial, that's a very big deal.
Right. And you're writing a book on the
Yeah, I
Luigi
am.
Mangione. Can you tell folks about that? I'm
Well,
interested as much as you can say. I
yeah,
know
as
that
much as I
there's
can. Obviously, I could say very, very little. I'm very excited about this book because, the reason for doing this is that, this case, this crime, I think, touches on things that are so relevant to our society right now. And so I'm very excited, not just to tell people the story of Brian Thompson, the story of Luigi Mangione, but also the story of where we are culturally and what is going on with healthcare and it's a bigger book. So I'm excited for I'm excited for all of that. It's challenging, as you know, Adam, to report into a moving trial.
right, of course.
Because it's always challenging, and it was with the Brian Kohberger trial. And the answer is you just write the best book. You report the best book that you can as quickly as you can. And I think and because trials get pushed back. In Kohberger's case, it got moved. So we just I'm going to go as fast as I can, but also write the best book that Jim and I can.
One of the things that was very striking to me, obviously, I have not covered this set of hearings. It's been a really busy news cycle with lots going on in the court, but I have covered what goes on in Manhattan Criminal Court every time Luigi Mangione is in town. And I remember the first time I was there. It was on I believe, the 15th floor, and you could hear the protesters outside cheer for Mangione. And I haven't heard anything like it. This was, he's charged with murder, and there was wild applause that made it 15 stories high into the courtroom during this pretrial hearing. So obviously this has generated a lot of focus, a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the ledger here, there's an expression of distrust in the system writ large, right? So you have the fact that the the legitimacy of both the healthcare industry, the proceedings are very much in focus. And the first time that he was in court, and I guess this is leading up to the question to you: what happened during these proceedings? He was shackled, both at the hands and ankles. They didn't remove those shackles during the proceedings. This is a pretrial proceeding. That's pretty much unusual. And that is now being challenged, that in defense of his right to a fair trial. His defense team is arguing that that it's just the image itself conveys this is a dangerous person, this is a killer.
Yeah, so now during these hearings, the defense won that argument, and he's in a suit every day. I think he's been allowed 2 different suits, 5 different shirts, and all the rest of it, and it's very effective. I will say that, Adam, the sheer spectacle of him sitting there immaculately, they're expensive suits.
Right.
And and as we know, he comes from a wealthy family. He's an Ivy League graduate. He's went to private schools. He's sitting there. He looks out of place. And, I wonder what effect that is going to have on a jury. I mean, we have a long way to go, but
Right.
but visuals do matter in a courtroom. It is like theater.
Right. And there are consultants who work on this very thing. I remember the first major trial I would say that I covered. It was a terrorism case. It was a case of Ahmed Gailani. He was charged and ultimately convicted of plotting to bomb the U.S. Embassy in East Africa for Al Qaeda in the late 1990s, two U.S. embassies. And he appeared in court, very muted color sweaters. And the defense attorney came up with a phrase, the Kariakou Kid, that Ahmed Gailani was the Kariakou Kid. And from Kariakou, it's a market district in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And so I remember that very vividly, and how the defense attorney played that to great effect. That he was very young, and the defense was that here's someone who was essentially set up by two hardened terrorists, that he was just going along running errands for Al Qaeda. And there was a surprise verdict. He was charged with something like 280 plus counts, mostly murder charges. He was convicted on one conspiracy count, but that conspiracy count was enough, one, to put him in jail for the rest of his life, and two, to make sure that the federal government did not risk putting on another former Guantanamo detainee in trial in a civilian court. It became a political football. And I think with any case like this, I'm going to throw it back to you after this, there's this sense of when people have obviously strong feelings about the healthcare industry, people have strong feelings about Guantanamo Bay, and that it's always a test of how can we uphold our standards, so that in the Gailani case, no, we're not going to use evidence that was admitted under torture, because that's what happened at Guantanamo Bay. And in the case of Luigi Mangione, are we going to parade him into court shackled? Are we going to fling charges that might not fit under New York law? And it seems like the judge is very sensitive to that. From what I'm seeing, he tossed those terrorism charges. He got rid of the image of we're going to put him in court shackled, and he's giving an extensive airing before trial begins to the idea that maybe there was a bad search that can lead to the suppression of very critical evidence. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do. You do. And I mean, what's really fascinating is that for the most part, the Pennsylvania cops, clearly this is what they do every time they arrest someone in Pennsylvania. But one wonders if that's, they then haven't been hauled into court in New York with people, a judge asking about their methodology until now. And there was, we haven't yet heard, but we will get to it, I'm sure. There's one Corporal Trent, who does wonder aloud, when they're he says, hey, everyone, don't we need to stop? Don't we need to get a warrant given the severity of the case? And he's kind of ignored, but I would imagine that, he's going to be questioned intensively when we get to it. But the judge, the very fact, I think, that the judge is letting these hearings go on, to your point, is telling. So, we shall see. We shall see. It's going to be a roller coaster. The supporters, were out in, they've been there. Many of them sleeping in tents in the freezing cold. I mean, the stamina of a lot of them has been extraordinary, actually. I mean, and that only 24 of them are allowed into the courtroom each day, but they're very organized and they're very well behaved. And, they seem to have a very good rapport with the court marshals. And I think also what you found by now is that I think people weren't expecting these hearings to go on, and they've got jobs. So yesterday I think I only counted 8 in court because I mean, what are you going to do when hearings go on every single day? People do have to go and keep earning a living, and
Right.
and I think you run out of energy. I mean, how many nights can you go on no sleep and stay in a tent? It's hard.
Right, absolutely. And those are folks who actually went into court to observe the proceedings.
Yeah.
I remembered when the day when the judge announced his ruling from the bench, throwing out the terrorism charges, there were actually a couple of cheers in the courtroom, quickly stifled by the court
Yeah.
security officers, because you're not supposed to do that in court. That might be obvious to the folks watching, but worth reiterating. But that this has happened every time. Did you notice at the beginning of the proceedings, has that wave of cheers for the man accused of murder at the defense table, has that
Well,
continued?
they changed the way that he comes into the courtroom, Adam. So he no longer, he at the beginning of all of these hearings, the first ones, he had to go through. He went through the public the same way that the public go, and so there was a great sea of photographers, and there were people outside the courtroom, but in the hallways, and now they have him coming in through a private entrance. So you can't actually see him outside of the courtroom. And no, and inside the courtroom, there's been complete decorum.
Okay.
Yeah, no. And I think that's very deliberate, actually, on the part of the supporters. I mean, I've got to know quite a number of them very, very well. And I think that they feel that it's very important that they behave in a respectful manner, because they're there representing Mangione. And I think they sense that this is they're part of a bigger political movement, if you will, and they don't want to come across as kind of hooligans, if that makes sense. And they're not. I mean, they have this incredible honor system where they each have numbers, depending on what time they arrive, so that people can then go away and get a coffee or get warm. And but they've got each got a number on their wrist. I mean, they are very organized, and yes. And civility is definitely the message they want to send. It's interesting.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like reporters on the line for Donald Trump's criminal trial. I mean, I remember there was that honor system. Hey, you were in line at this time. Can I go grab a coffee? And everyone, uh, you know, remembered that. Uh, but you have spoken to them. Do they see themselves, the supporters who you've spoken to, as folks who are supporting Luigi Mangione and his alleged acts, or do they see themselves as making a statement about inequalities in the healthcare insurance industry?
I think both.
Mm,
And I think both. And I think it's not just about healthcare, but that is a huge focus. It is about, it's this idea that we in American society have gotten to the point where there are some institutions and some people who are beyond government control. And, that is the sense. And I think there's also a generational feeling. There's a generational malaise. There are a lot of very well-educated young people who are struggling. They're trying very hard to get jobs and I mean, it's a lot of what you heard with the supporters of Zoran Mandani is that, I definitely, that there is a generation coming up who have received all the benefits of, a private education or multiple degrees, and yet they're stuck. And I think that's, speaks to who a lot of the supporters here are. I think they feel the system doesn't give them any hope.
mm.
And they're very articulate. I mean, these are well educated people.
Have you asked any of them about folks who might be horrified, about their position? Have you said, have any of them responded, hey, I might intensely agree with you about all of your criticisms about the healthcare system and the lack of accountability available in the system. And if Mangione is guilty of what he is accused of doing, we can't just have murder in the street. Have any of them responded to folks who just completely don't understand the phenomenon of what is going on, the wall of cheers outside the criminal courthouse in a case like this?
Yeah, and I think that they are, um, that they are not people who would have gone out and done the same. Is the interesting thing. I think, but they want to be there as a measure. They're there to protest the healthcare system. I think there is a feeling that Luigi Mangione, among them, that Luigi Mangione did something that they wouldn't have the courage to, that he was really trying to cause a revolution, and that revolutions, unfortunately, do often necessitate violence. And I think, but I think if you ask them, would they be prepared to go out and do something similar? The answer would probably be no. Um, so, it's more nuanced than I think people maybe think.
Mm. Well, I look forward to your book, and of course, we'll both be covering this.
Yeah.
I see we're close to the 12:30 mark, so if you
Yeah,
want
we
to
haven't
do a
even got.
lightning round.
I know, because I see Epstein, the grand jury stuff is going to be released, I think, imminently. And I saw that coming over the wires just as we hopped on. Give me the blow by blow, the greatest hits, Adam, of what you're seeing.
So just this morning, it's 3 for 3. All three grand jury records in the Epstein and Maxwell cases are going to come to light. That was by virtue of the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. It gave the government another opportunity to try to unseal the cases when they were 0 for 3 in that regard. But two of the three judges did a little bit more on the way out and said, one, don't expect much from the Ghislaine Maxwell grand jury record. This is all stuff that came out at her trial. And by the way, government, and this is important, before the rulings in the New York Epstein and Maxwell grand jury records, Annie Farmer filed a letter asking the judges to ensure that the government cannot use protective orders as an excuse for avoiding greater transparency. Both judges did that. And I would say Judge Engelmeyer, in particular, sharply criticized the government for its conduct throughout this. He made the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, personally certify that victim information won't be disclosed. So I called it a Pyrrhic victory for the government. I think that's true. They probably walked in thinking, oh, let's try to unseal the grand jury record. If the judges say no, we can say, these judges won't let us do anything. And if they do it, then yay, government scores a win. But what happened was something different. You had the judges sharply criticizing the government for what two judges called a diversion, and going ahead and saying, don't try to use this litigation as an excuse to avoid the greater transparency that's coming out December 19th. And so you had that. You have more paperwork that U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton needs to do, personally certifying to the protection of the victims, and more kind of lightning round things. I would just say this morning, a federal judge has ordered the National Guard back to state control in California. in another loss for the Trump administration that will be inevitably appealed. And it's also before the Supreme Court for another case. So we'll find more about that soon. And, there is lots of stuff coming to a head, Vicky, and plenty more to talk about.
Oh, I can't wait, Adam. Okay, well, as always, I wish I had more time this second, but we will resume.
Absolutely.
But thank you for making the time for doing this.
What a pleasure.
Yeah, all right. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.